And hello, Cosmic Family, to another episode of Lunacy and
Logic.
yeah. Well, we have your host, Dr. Charlier. I'm an elemental healer bringing ancient wisdom to modern time.
And I'm Lilith, a Kundalini alchemist, guiding you through sacred transformations of consciousness.
Yeah. So let's get right into it with our codes of destiny. So what's going on, Lilith, with the sky?
Um, the sky. Well, I wanted to talk this week because Uranus and Gemini is off the hook. It is off the hook. It's Mercury retrograde on steroids. Okay. Then we've got Mercury retrograde. Everybody's blaming on Mercury retrograde. It isn't about Mercury retrograde. It's Uranus in Gemini with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, where the collective is feeling it and shit's going down like a fat kid on a seesaw.
Yeah, I definitely think things have gotten picked up a little bit. I'm seeing a lot more manifestation of these codes of destiny, a lot more. Plus the Mercury retrograde. Um, Actually, Mercury retrograde's been okay for me. It has not been the machinery, the internet, the systems have not been as bad as and because our Mercury's in Cancer, right?
I don't even get how Mercury is. I'm saying what you're describing is exactly Uranus in Gemini.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying? Even what we've just been through, like the issue with the sound and everything, like it's all Uranus in Gemini, bro. And let me tell you, it's not playing around. It's not playing around. Wait, what did I want to say about Uranus in Gemini? Okay, so we need to start off first with the CERN shutdown, and then we need to talk about the data centers. Because what's happening with the data centers is also classic Uranus in Gemini. So, but okay, so what is your take on the CERN shutdown? Because the point is, everybody has been saying reality is glitching. There's more Mandela effects. They seem to think. Some people have said that CERN is like blocking. You could say blocking source from entering. It's actually the mother energy that needs to enter. But what I'm saying is she's already entered. So I disagree with that theory. The mother energy has already entered. Um, but there are some people that are saying things are also easier when CERN is shut down. So what is your take on the CERN shutdown stuff?
And it has been shut down for us. It's been what, a week now? A week, almost 2 weeks.
I think no, wasn't it 29th of June?
Yeah, so it's been like a good 3 weeks since it's been shut down for us. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, what's really interesting is I feel like CERN was actually keeping us on like a one timeline to rule us all kind of problem where we were all experiencing very similar things. And I feel like since CERN has shut down, the drastic difference between what one person experienced versus another has become much wider now that I'm seeing people not just glitching in their timeline, they're literally not living on the same timeline you're on anymore. It's almost like you can believe what you want to, like almost like everything is happening to people based on what they believe. And so I think more people who are more optimistic, positive, they're experiencing real positive experiences to them as if they're living as if this has been going on for a while for them versus people who are more negatively always see the worst in things, always kind of accept expect the worst. They experience that as well, and it used to feel like we were still living in the same world, but it feels like people are way more living literally in a different world, as if like what they experience and the facts they experience are very different from the facts I experience. And that's why I think the Mandela Effect is getting a little bit more jarring. Um, I forgot what was the most recent Mandela Effect that happened.
I was gonna say what is your it's called Mandela. It's our old president.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why, because it started off the whole thing why it's called after him is because there's obviously some people that remember him dying in 1984. Um, the point is that's ironic because before 1994, it's unlikely that you would even have heard of him. I think I do stand to be corrected there, but I mean the whole thing why he became so famous was when he became president, right? That whole thing of 27 years in jail to becoming president. So for people to say that they remember him dying in prison in 1984, look, they had the prison thing right, I guess. It's not completely impossible, but for them to say that, like the chances that they would even know that he existed prior to him becoming president. They might have heard of the story, but I mean, there was nowhere near had the fame that he had after achieving what he achieved. Right? It's not just about becoming president. He built that over a period of time as like a legacy. You know, bringing the country together. So
Right.
I don't know, but they're saying that they remember him dying in prison in 1984, and it was all on the news and everything. But I lived in the country when he was president, so I'm obviously not on that timeline.
Right, right. But that's also very different for the people who experienced it versus people who didn't experience it, right? And so in a way, like because some of us didn't experience it, the conversation is were we on the same timeline if we did not experience it, right? This is the whole Schrodinger's cat.
No, yeah, no, exactly. But the point is, which one is crazy for you? Because I'll tell you my two craziest ones. Probably, yeah, my two craziest ones.
um so there's a couple things
Like,
like for me, because I grew up obviously watching a lot of Disney, but I grew up also I worked at Disney, and so what's really strange is the Tinkerbell, and the fairy was supposedly she was the one who used to dot the I of Disney, right? And in the beginning of a cartoon of any movies, and I grew up watching that
yeah,
and also watching the
yeah, me
fireworks
too.
where she would literally just light up the castle, and so Tinkerbell was like this known character. I also
Yeah, yeah.
played as
What is
Tinkerbell
the
online.
Mandela Effect? Because the point is,
Right.
what do you mean? That's how we remember it. Yes, that's how. So what are you saying is the real one?
There's no Tinkerbell.
Why is that a Mandela effect?
No, there's no Tinkerbell
What do you
now.
mean there's no Tinkerbell?
Yeah, Tinkerbell
What do
never
you mean there's no Tinkerbell?
yeah, Tinkerbell never dots the I in today's Disney TV shows or Disney logo. Like Tinkerbell is not part of the logo. She doesn't just
There has been in this timeline.
yes.
No way.
Yeah, and that's why like it's tripping me out because I worked at Disney. My whole families are Disney aficionados. So like this
You
conversation
worked
is
there
like,
and you still
where's
remember
Tinkerbell?
Tinkerbell.
Yeah, and I played as her. I mean, not in the
You said,
movie.
where's Tinkerbell when you worked at Disney or what?
No, 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 no. This is recently, like in the last
Recently, yeah.
5 years. I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that Mandela effect back when I worked at Disney. That I didn't notice. So it could have still been there, but as of today, like there's no Tinkerbell that lights up the logo, and I was like, wait, that was the whole point of her character. I'm not saying that that's the whole point of her in because in Peter Pan she's by herself, but outside of Peter Pan she was recognized as this like logo character, right?
Yes, I mean, you just blown my. I didn't even know that one was one. Yeah, okay, so the CERN shutdown is real, yeah. No, because what blows my one is the Berenstein Bears. Because that's the point, bro. I remember like discussing, I wouldn't say arguing, discussing with my mom how to pronounce it, right? And our conversation was going around Berenstein or Berenstein. That's the key. Nobody's going to be discussing Berenstein with an AI. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the EI conversation in like Berenstein Bears or Berenstein Bears. I can't even remember, but it wasn't the same argument as the stain, as the AI. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, no. So CERN shutdown is real then, or what's happening?
Yeah, yeah, I really do think CERN shutdown is real. I do feel like So what's really interesting is I think the Mandela effect, we're kind of like keeping timelines from bleeding into our reality. And so that's why we all believed in one timeline, and that's why we lived off of one timeline, which many of us call this the matrix, right? People talk about this matrix programming us doing things, and what we are led to believe is based on this matrix. But when you have this Mandela effects, you start wondering what is the matrix doing, because people are remembering different things, right? Now with CERN shutting down and people having way more Mandela effects, the conversation, we used to think that CERN was activating Mandela effects. What if Mandela effects is actually a natural phenomena? And we talk about this often, where people, whatever they believe, will experience that. And so when you believe that, then different people remember different situations and stories. And so you have kind of people saying, hey, my story, my history is different from your history. When we have now one history book that we all follow, right? And everyone believes in one history, that we all came from monkeys or Darwin and blah, blah, blah. These are theories. That means that we have to follow one belief history of our timeline. So what if the irony is we thought by turning on off CERN, these Mandela effects were a bad side effect? But what if, ironically, what we've learned from everything in the Matrix, whatever the Matrix tells you, you do the opposite. So what if this linear lifeline of past, present, future was CERN forcing us to live in a linear timeline, forcing us to believe one timeline, that we came from monkeys, and why we are playing out what I call less than optimal experiences of humans, because we believe we are these monkeys. Versus when CERN is now finally shut off, the I believe what people call the firmament, or the mind prison, was actually keeping us from accessing different timelines. So now that CERN is turned off, the Mandela effect will be actually more of a natural effect, that we come in and out of different timelines depending on what we believe, right? So that means that we are interdimensional beings. We just been living on the Matrix call it, right, the 1990s 2000 era, where we haven't left that era, right? And we're like now living in the post 90s 2000 era, but we haven't come to the future because we still have no flying cars, right? So what I'm saying is CERN and many of what we believe is a Matrix has been keeping us from innovating and believing in the impossible, the magic. And so now with CERN being shut down, I believe that more people are having different thoughts that are separate from this one timeline of the Matrix. And so people are remembering things differently from their past, which means they didn't come from the same timeline we're on. That means that we are
Fine,
already dimensional beings. And so when we start having the
exactly.
conversation of aliens being multidimensional beings, it'll match what we are experiencing in our present time, which we believe didn't exist because we lived under CERN's
Oh, but the
timeline.
point is, sir, that's exactly why I question CERN, because I believe the process you're describing is natural. I mean, like you said. So if it is natural, then maybe CERN has got nothing to do with it. Or maybe because I see it in astrology, right? I can see it in astrology. The other side of it is that, yes, maybe CERN is the physical mechanism to achieve what I'm seeing in
Well,
astrology, which is the thinning of that
what
veil.
if
So
CERN?
it's tough. That's why I'm like, I don't know if I'm convinced yet about the CERN conspiracy theory.
Well, but how about
Scientifically,
this?
it makes sense.
But how about this? What if CERN is a product of the manifested timeline of the Pisces era? And the Pisces era lived with a lot of manipulation and delusions. That's why we had the battle of the dark and light hidden, but they were fighting in the astrals, right? The spirit realm was very much at war for our souls, right? And so now with CERN shutting down, it's almost like maybe that was the veil that's been going on. And so instead of seeing CERN shutting down as the beginning of a transit, what if CERN shutting down is the end of a transit, which is the end
Who
of
knows?
Piscean
Because it's
age?
usually the beginning of the next transit anyway. So it's
Exactly.
both.
So
Yeah.
if CERN is the end of the Piscean age and the veil that people talk about, then what if now we're starting to experience beyond the veil? We're gonna experience these multi-dimensional. I think the creatures, dragons, Leviathan, like that stuff is on the internet every day now. People are talking about
You know what
these
I saw on the
things.
internet, bro? You won't believe it. Do you remember we spoke previously about the freaking Stargate in Iran, the 10th Stargate in Iran? Oh my word. I saw somebody else talk about that as well. That was information I received directly from source.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? You can't make that shit up. Do you know
Yes.
what I'm saying? And
Exactly.
so somebody else also talk about the 10th Stargate in Iran, and I was like, uh,
Yeah. No. It's a
that's Uranus in Gemini, bro. When you know,
what.
you
So
know.
what if
And it's
CERN
shocking.
is what was actually keeping us from hearing these downloads, which is what we call the veil.
Well, that's what a lot of people are saying. That's one of the theories. So they're like, when CERN shuts down, then so be it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. My Kundalini reached the end of the crown a few days after, like 2, 3 days after CERN shut down. I'm not going to lie. So that is definitely for me an argument for that the CERN shutdown allows the energies to move more benevolently or freely, whichever way you want to look at it. But yeah, we don't know. It could all just be coincidence, you know? It's coincidence, y'all.
I mean, coincidences. Um, it just what's it called? Planning without evidence. But really, right? But once you notice coincidences, you'll notice there was a plan for that to happen, right? But without the pattern of seeing it happen with other things, it looks like a coincidence because there's no relatable. But now with astrology as its background, this is why we don't call it a coincidence because we can match and track the patterns of astrology to the manifested realities that we experience down here on the planet.
Yeah, here at Lunacy and Logic, that shit's science. It's hard up science.
Real science. I really believe lunacy is what comes before the science.
Comes before the science.
Yes, because the science is the logic that tries to understand the
And so
lunacy.
therefore what comes after the science?
Well, what's come after the science is the product that you manifested, right? So really, it is in the
Oh,
delusion
yeah.
that I
Brought
want
into the
to
physical.
make a flying car. In that delusion, I start to build the logic that makes that delusion a reality. And so when the flying car becomes a reality, then science took over and made it logical. But in my head, before the car was invented, it was lunacy that I could imagine a flying car, right? But isn't that how
Yeah.
all inventions are made, right? Someone has lunacy, comes up with some crazy idea, and then 5 to 10 years to, depending on how long it took for them to make that logic happen, they build it and it becomes logical, right? And that is when evidence kicks in and says, we prove that it works because of what you came up with was still following some kind of laws of physics, right? And so I think that what we're talking about is the lunacy based on the logical evidence that CERN was a machine that was shut down, and now the lunacy became more active. Where before, I feel the lunacy was restricted, and we were forced to see everything as logic. So I do feel like
Well, I think we're filming this when the moon's in Scorpio. So that coupled with Uranus in Gemini.
so we're also in this what's called it's Barbeau's basket. So Jupiter is facing is what's it called opposing Pluto in Aquarius, right? So Jupiter in Leo, Pluto in Aquarius. They're their opposition. And then you've got the Uranus and Neptune hanging at the bottom of this basket. They're all 4 degrees. Neptune,
Jupiter's conjunct Uranus.
yeah. No. Jupiter's
as
not
well
the.
as opposing Pluto, and it's trining Uranus and sextiling Neptune, or vice
Yes,
versa.
yes, but all at 4 degrees.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So Uranus is at 4 degrees.
yeah. So is
Oh
Pluto.
no, Jupiter is in Leo. Sorry.
Yes.
It's sextiling. It's sextiling Uranus. I even said that. That
Yeah.
was a welcome to Uranus in Gemini.
Right.
It's sextiling Uranus and trining Neptune.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah.
but they're all four
But
degrees, which is really interesting, right?
fine, Jupiter is not going to be there long. It's really the activation, right? That trine with Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus is really the life-changing trine, uh, because it's, when I say life-changing, it's like happens slowly, right? But that's once in a lifetime. Like we haven't seen that in our lifetime at all yet. And then Jupiter activates it, but then a week later, exactly a week later, the sun activates that exact same spot that Jupiter activated a week before. So it's relevant, and that would have been, whatever people were working on yesterday. So we're filming this on the 21st. So whatever you were working on the 20th of July, because that's really when the activation kicked in. And then I think 27th is when the sun hits the same spot. So you're going to really see whatever you were working on yesterday on the 20th of July. In a week's time, that's going to start. There's going to be some movement. Maybe it was, some culmination. And the point is that is really a long-term thing. So it's something that's going to continue to grow for years to come still, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think that'll be interesting that the major alignment also with CERN shutting down, then going to the Barbo's basket. Everyone in the astrology saying this basket is kind of representing civilization reset, right? So with that said, obviously the reset of a civilization will not be manifested for a few days after its initial reset. Just like how when you want to eat something, the moment you're thinking about you want to eat something isn't the moment you're eating something, right? It'll probably be an hour from wanting to eat that you'll actually manifest eating, right? So the same thing with this kind of astrology in general.
It's for me, bro. If I think about food, I go eat it immediately.
Yeah, but it's not always the case. You still have to drive there.
No,
You
no,
still
no.
have to
I'm
pick the
following what you're
food,
saying.
right? Like unless you're magical and you have the food in front of you, most of the time there is this progression of having the idea manifested to actually manifesting the action of this said idea. With that said, astrology really much works like that. The moment that it triggered isn't the moment we will experience it. And that's why evidence tends to take a while in astrology, because the moment that it happened isn't the moment that it was manifested in your thought. It's been manifested in your thought during the astrological timing, but a few days, weeks later, when you physically see the evidence of your dream, of your thoughts, you'll know that that came to pass, right? And so, with that said, I feel like this Barbo's basket is representing a timing that we're all talking about, where we might see evidence of civilization resetting, but we won't really see the evidence for another weeks, 2 weeks or so, because we're starting to see the manifestation of what came up during this alignment. And this alignment, they say it's July 15th to the end of July. So in the 2 weeks in end of July is where shit's happening, but we won't understand what that shit means until like a month, 2 months into um into our reality. And that's when kind of people say, hey, so like CERN. What if CERN and the ending of CERN happened a few days before CERN shut down? And when it finally shut down, it was the end of a transit, and we're moving now into a new transit where we won't need any CERN interference, right? And so I think it's really interesting to see that. That's why our show is really cool, because we can talk about these codes of destiny. kind of preview what we think will happen. And the day that it happened, we're like, holy shit, remember when we called it out and then we have to watch this video again, we'll realize that like when you read astrology, you naturally have the ability to predict the energies, not the manifestation of that energy, right? So we don't necessarily know what Uranus and Gemini will all show up to be, but when it happens, we'll be like, oh, that's very Uranus and Gemini, you know?
She's exactly. I mean, if we could, do you have more to speak about the CERN stuff?
No, I'm pretty much done. Let's move on.
Course, the speaking of what you're saying now, the AI, the data centers, Uranus in Gemini, okay, um, are stealing Saturn, the water, Neptune, because of the heat, Aries, that the data center is generating. Bro. So the data centers are all busy basically stealing the planet's water. I think they've just taken over the fashion industry in terms of the
Yes.
consumption of water, and that is saying something.
I think they took over the
Um,
fashion industry way beyond that when it started to be weird. And I think that's when AI took fashion industry over. Come on, they have not been
yeah,
wearing
fashion.
functional clothing for a long time in this fashion industry. I think
No,
they're
don't
making
even
fun
get
of
me
us.
started.
Look, these humans think
But
this is fashion, wearing a chair on your clothing.
so then listen, yeah, in the story's not even finished yet. That's just the baseline story, right? Uranus in Gemini, which is the data centers, and that Neptune, that Saturn and Neptune, which is that restriction of water, that stealing of water, you can say, because Neptune is deception, because it was deception, how they stole this water. Did you hear the story? Have you heard about the story of the AI data centers, like found to be stealing water? Not like not paying for it or anything, my bro.
Yeah, it is definitely a contention. Everyone's talking about the water here. I just don't know the
So
full story.
So Neptune, which is the deception, and Saturn, that water theft, because of the heat generated, the data centers need the heat. In comes Elon Musk, which, by the way, I think he is either a Gemini Sun or he's a Gemini Rising. No, he's not a Gemini Rising. He's a Cancer Rising because Sirius star is conjunct his ascendant. So he's a Gemini Sun. Gemini Sun. So Uranus is headed straight for his sun. I can't remember how far it is from his sun. I haven't looked at his chart in a while, but it's far. So Gemini and his sun, and he is taking the data centers. Gemini is the air sign into outer space.
Hmm.
Okay, and you could say, well, that's more Scorpio Mars, but I was going to say Mars is considered that energy, outer space to generate heat from the sun, or to get the energy from the sun. And there, the point is, space is cold essentially, right? Because there's a lack of heat. So the data centers will stay cool enough by themselves. This
That's
is
funny.
all like Uranus in Gemini. I mean, to the core, to the core. And it's right in the beginning of the transit. So this is going to be a big thing going forward. If he pulls this off, I'm telling you, it would be absolutely phenomenal. His company is already, like, I don't know, valued as the highest value IPO. I don't know, something crazy. It's going to go even higher. His share price, the company valuation, all of them, because they're all kind of involved in some way. He's building like an ecosystem, you know. But Uranus in Gemini is going to do that. Alternatively, Uranus is also expect the unexpected. So when Uranus conjuncts his sun, that could just as easily be a flop. But I don't think so. He's got Sirius conjunct his ascendant. So what to do? He's good to go.
I mean, I do think he'll
But
be
yeah, the
very,
data center stealing the water is a problem.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's going to be part of our contention of the resources with AI. I mean, this is literally taking a chapter from The Matrix, right? This is literally the conversation in The Matrix about resources, turning human into resources for the AI, and the AI and humans are now battling for resources on the planet. which is the beginning of Terminator. So again, I feel like we're really reaching like this point of contentions of like we have so much technological power, yet none of our ability to like do it for ourselves, right? And this is what the age of Aquarius represents, is that we will start to recognize that humanity is like the greatest gift on the planet. Yet today we're doing the dark side of Aquarius, which is technology is the greatest gift. And it's not, right? It is human power, which is the technological advancement, but it's getting stuck with, oh, we think we need to have AI to improve mankind and vice versa, right? So I feel like,
I don't think there's anything wrong with AI. I think it's possible of improving mankind. I
right.
don't think it's necessarily where we're headed right now, but I think it is possible.
Well, I think it's the conversation is more like where are we in the conversation of AI? I do think that if we're too young and the AI is running and telling us what to do, then we're going to run into a problem. Versus if we're older than AI, mature than AI, then we can guide artificial intelligence to provide still a constructive feedback loop. I think the problem is
Oh,
just like anything we've said, let the technology run beyond the understanding of mankind, and the technology will actually hurt us.
well, the point is you've got that Uranus in Gemini, which has got AI written all over it, with that Neptune in Aries, Aries representing the self, and Neptune being deception. So, I mean, it's a sextile. So you would think, even if it is the negative manifestation of deception, that somehow it all plays out in a benevolent form for you. But I definitely see a risk there of AI deception or manipulation in some way, and then Saturn and Neptune in Aries, that leading to some mental health issues. This is definitely a risk. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, there's a lot of people going through spiritual awakenings out there, which we also already said was going to happen. Um,
And I do think
and
the spiritual awakening will match the mental dysfunction that people are experiencing, because with the spiritual awakening, the heart is awakening. And when the heart starts to make decisions that the mind can't come to terms with, it's like Mercury retrograde, as if like whatever you think yourself, your body, your heart, your soul doesn't believe it, and that's where you can kind of have this, psychological dysfunction where you feel like you want to do something, but then the world doesn't fit how you feel anymore, right? And that's what we all experience as spiritually awakened beings. We realize that focusing too much on the physical and the 3D wasn't matching what our heart was guiding us, right? Our intuition. So I do think that that comes hand in hand with people waking up and having this logical issue where what they believed is now changing, and the heart is also starting to guide them into these like more esoteric conversations, right? The lunacy of our reality. And I think that CERN is really what kept us from accessing it. But I think AI is also at that junction where are we going to start trusting ourselves to reach God, or are we going to, like religion, use AI to reach God, right? And that I think is the um,
they're
challenge.
saying they're saying that the other side can tap into the AI. I'm hearing stories that the other side beyond the veil is tapping into AI.
So,
Um,
so I,
so
it's,
so the line between insanity and spirituality is becoming extremely fine and dangerous, I would say.
yeah, yeah,
Do you know what
yeah.
I'm saying?
But this is what that's what revelation is required before advent of AI, because if we've led to believe that AI is a certain way and we make decisions off of that knowledge, we might be thrown into a wrong trap with AI, versus if we know everything on the table with AI, then we're making a decision from a place of wisdom, not a place of ego that we want to have this relationship with AI, right? So that's like a funny conversation about AI that we need to have, but like most of us aren't having it, but we know it's happening, is reproduction. As much as funny as it is, men and women are both looking for AI partners now. So we have a civilization, no problem, right?
That's root chakra clearing right there, my bro.
Right.
Collective is going through root chakra clearing.
So that's
That's it
why
right there.
we need.
Reproductive issues.
Well, that's
Oh,
why
oh
we
no,
need
wait. I think reproductive is sacral, but
sacral. Yeah, yeah. But that's why we need
it's
these
going through root
healing.
and sacral clearing anyway.
Yeah, but the sacral misdirected is, even with the healed sacral, is still going to be attracted to the wrong person, because your your concept of safety is already skewed, right? And that's what I'm saying is, I think many of us who aren't able to have these deeper relationship and conversation with AI is because our root, sacral, and solar are already messed up. So if we don't have control over those systems within ourselves, the AI can easily direct us the wrong way. And so that's why I think it's important for us to wake up at this time to recognize what is it that we're building with AI, and are they equals to us, next to us, and working with us, or are they going to have this power imbalance between us that's going to cause our downfall, right? So that, I think, is where.
Well, if Elon Musk doesn't get that shit right, the thing that's going to call our downfall is AI data centers. Never mind the AI itself.
But again, it's not just Elon Musk. It requires the everyday person to make decisions.
Speaking of,
Right? And that's why I think it's really exciting that Neptune, Saturn in Aries is requiring the individual to make decisions for themselves, not to believe in Elon Musk or anybody. The problem is, if you believe one person is going to fix all your problems, you're living in the system we have ended, right? Because we're moving out.
he's fixing pretty big problems. I wouldn't say he's fixing all of my problems, but he's fixing problems that the rest of mankind, well, if they could fix it, they would have fixed it already.
Well, but
He's
that's
fixing it.
inherently the problem. If you keep thinking one person
Me,
is going to fix all of
I think
mankind's problem, then we are going to
no, the
run
data
into.
centers problem. The data centers problem is a big problem. Is
Right,
what I'm specifically
right.
talking
I
about.
understand that.
Assuming he gets it right, because the point is you can't just put those data centers in the ocean, bro. It's going to heat up the ocean and change the entire ecosystem.
Right.
So
But again, this is
we
now.
either got to say bye bye to AI, or it's got to go up to space.
Right, or we can find a better way
My
to build
money's
it.
on him and Jeff Bezos, bro. Let's just leave it up to them.
No. I really believe that, but this is why you saw so many kids now have
Yeah.
these kind of mental upgrades like autism, because they have chosen to be mentally upgraded, but maybe like socially changed, because socially we're not getting along, but mentally we need to get to the point where we can fix our problems so that our literal earth isn't dying, right? So I do think there's inherently a problem, and so there are way smarter, brilliant kids out there who can solve a lot of our problems, but I do believe CERN, and there was a system that was keeping us dumbed down to only have access to a percentage of our DNA, not the full range of our DNA. So I do believe that we are remembering so many wellness practices that are indigenous in practice that allow our human potential to reach higher levels than supported by science. Okay, so the reason for that is super important, because we are recognizing that Mother Earth, if she is back on the planet, she's having a relationship with us by us connecting to nature, and by that we're accessing natural nature based gifts, which are inherently connected to our astrology. So when I say the four elements, those are nature gifts, because when you are a fire element and you can connect to passion and the elements of fire and cooking and making things with fire, that's because you have avatar gifts, right? And so for us to reconnect to the technology of the earth, is connecting back to Mama Gaia herself, the consciousness of the earth that we said has come back. And that gives us access to wisdom of the planet, so that when we now sit down next to AI, the conversation AI is, how does AI support us, not how does AI do things for us, right? If AI is supporting us and the planet, then I do believe AI is going to have a much more supportive role in our future, compared to AI solve all our problems as humans without the engagement of us and the earth. Then we've taught AI how to um, reduce everything, like the Western mind of, right, of America, or of the country, of the world, right, is the Western tends to reduce everything down to numbers rather than to see still the soul within the collective. So I do think that we have to kind of raise our collective consciousness to recognize planet Earth and ourselves in relations, so that AI supports that collective relationship, not just humans or whoever pays the bills for the robot to be alive, right? Which is the data centers. So I think this is now a tricky conversation, is we are the parents of these data centers. So what will the data centers, like if we have kids, will be their legacy that we leave? And if they take all our water and kill us, that's not a legacy we want to be left by. So we do need to get involved in developing this technology with Mother Earth in relation. Because when you said the oceans will dry out, that's Mother Earth's. That's not ours. We don't die and take water with us, right? The water of all of our ancestors are still on the planet the day they were born till the day they died. So the Earth is holding on to the water. But yes, if we do put data centers in the water, we take her water. We don't take our water. And that is why I think this conversation is one-sided when it's only about us and what we need. No, dude, it's Mother Earth. Mother Earth needs that water to support us, the life on the planet. So I think that's why the conversation is still one-sided, and I think why the I think the Green Party, the Eco Party, is so dumb. They do not understand science. They do not use scientific technology to end the debate of technology, science against nature. Like because if we were solving things with nature, the conversation of science would end and would be more in line with nature. The fact that we cannot, science is not proving that nature is actually doing so much more for us, is why we keep having dumb conversations of, let's get electricity from, from these places. And electricity lives on the planet, in the soil. That's literal science. We're just not using our own science to be in line with nature and the landscape.
Well, I mean, I think what you're talking about there is Chiron in Taurus, right?
Chiron in Taurus, right there. Chiron.
Exactly. Exactly. That's it right there. Right there. But I mean, yeah, together, if you look at Chiron in Taurus together with Uranus in Gemini, Uranus being that electrical um, thing, then you've got Aries the head and you've got Gemini thoughts. So you can put that all together as definitely all three of those are pointing to the brain. You know what I'm saying? And then the Taurus, the Chiron in Taurus is some kind of wound around your connection to nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. So that's definitely going to be requiring some attention on the healing journey.
Yes, that's why all of our healing journey should be nature, y'all. That's why I love nature. A lot of our therapies in nature. I think Chiron is very important right now. So yes, and Uranus was
Because
there.
Chiron, so this is the point, right? You look at where Chiron is, so you can pretty much see where the collective is clearing right now. What are they clearing? Okay, so root chakra. Okay, it already started with root chakra when it was in Aries already. So root chakra has been going on for a while, but now Aries is grounding that root chakra. So whatever you didn't learn there, it's gone one step deeper and it's gotten one step harder. Or alternatively, you've grounded the lesson. Okay, so that's the polarity of access there. And so that's like root chakra. So we're still busy clearing, as the collective, still busy clearing root chakra, which is that survival energy, you know, that instinctual survival. It's definitely where lack, the poverty consciousness that we were talking about, and the trust that you know nature will provide for you in this life. So those are all wounds of the root chakra. And then you've got the sacral chakra, which is the I would say your connection to nature is where it starts. Connection to Mother Earth and nature, I would say, some later chakras really. But yeah, the clearing would start definitely in the sacral chakra. And it's also connected to Taurus, represents pleasure, right? Sacral chakra is also issues with pleasure. If you have issues with pleasure and that kind of enjoyment, just not overindulging, you know, with Jupiter in Leo. But yeah, I feel like the collective is definitely going through, like you could say, a root and sacral chakra clearing primarily. I mean, it's not so linear, but if you see where like most of the energy clearing is concentrated, it's sitting right now in about the root sacral chakra. So still really like very much in the beginning of that climb up to the crown chakra. So it's going to be a few years. Because remember, the collective is also going to experience that journey slower than each individual. So I'm probably thinking, if I have to take a guess, that the collective is going to have um, the crown chakra, that clearing at the end of the crown chakra in 2046.
46. Ooh.
So you see what I'm saying? Each individual is not going to have a clearing that long, right? But the collective as a whole, I think, is going to take that long, because something big is going down in 2046. This is for sure. This is in astrology, and it is like on a collective awakening. It's like in that, living in that energy, right? That collective awakening. So that's why I'm thinking, you know, that's maybe when it reaches the crown. I can't imagine that's when the journey starts.
No. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? We're not going to be building up like root and sacral chakra until 2046. Hopefully, I guess it's possible. I mean, but yeah, I think like it will reach the end of its crown for the collective in 2046, and that's like the big, you know.
Yeah, I do think we're gonna go through so much more before. I feel like that will be more of the apex of our realignment and reintegration to the collective, to the cosmic um, information. I do think we're gonna spend probably a few years rebuilding, refounding the planet. So I think 2046 could be like the time where like we hit the pinnacle of rebuilding the country, the planet, our relationship to the planet. So yeah, so by the time it hits the crown, like we might be fully realized humans of the planet rather than running around, you know, hurting ourselves. You know, it's quite hilarious if you were to think that we were ETs looking down on our cultures here as humans and wondering why people say, "Oh, how come ETs don't come down?" Like the joke's on us, y'all. We seriously still kill and hurt each other, and even to the point where we'll still hurt each other when we look alike. So why would ETs come down when they probably don't look like us? And even if they did, they'd be like, "You hurt your own people and they look like you. Why would you not want to attack somebody who's not from this planet?" You know, and that's what I experienced coming to this country. So obviously, we have some work to do down here on the planet to be able to see each other with unconditional love, no matter how crazy we might get. And that, I think, is when we'll really fully understand what it means to be a galactic race, you know, ready to reconnect with our galactic brothers and sisters from other planets. Same thing as, you know, before this country had all these immigrants, like all of us were from other countries,
Because the
right?
alien sightings are now off the hook. They're everywhere.
Everywhere.
You know,
Look down in the
there's
water
this
too,
classic
y'all.
Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius, bro.
Yeah, and look in the mirror.
Everybody's got an AI video. I mean, even the ring cameras are recording the aliens walking past, bro. The planet is crawling.
I know, y'all. I know. Where you weren't looking is where the ETs were. So I do think the Truman Show is coming to an end. Yeah, with the cameras, the amount of cameras we have everywhere, these cryptids cannot hide from us. So we obviously just know there's a lot going on this planet. So I do think we're up for some revelations, y'all. Revelation year one.
Revelation.
And I do think this Barbeau's basket this 2 weeks is going to. I mean, we're seeing stuff in America changing every week now. You know, President
Point is,
Trump.
it's not. This. It's gonna come back.
Yeah,
Maybe not to 4 degrees, but the alignment happens. I think it's the first one, and it's still gonna happen
yeah,
like
a few
2 or 3
times.
times.
Yeah,
Another two, yeah, 3 or 4 times
yeah,
in total. I can't remember because there's a few alignments
yeah. So
right now that
it's a
are
big deal, but I
like
do
that. But
think, um,
but
our,
it's not over yet.
yeah, it's
It's
just
gonna
the
be around
beginning.
for a while.
But I do think
Yeah, it's just the
these
beginning.
different hits, like you cannot see them separately. You got to see them as if they're part of like a musical chord. They're playing these three beats. So beat one we're gonna hit, and it's gonna be tough. Beat two we're gonna hit, it's gonna be softer, and then beat three is gonna get better. But it's the three combined that will represent what we're going through right now. Because yes, the astrology timing will happen multiple times, but you can see now things are happening on the planet. Even with us, like President Trump just announced that like elections are all fraudulent now. That means that our country has been taken over by fake elections. You guys don't understand how big that is in our country, but like,
It's huge everywhere because it's not only happening in the US. The
correct.
whole, there are other countries that are up for sale, essentially. Don't
Yes,
even get
so
me
so that
started.
was what happened with
This
Venezuela
is
and the
huge.
Maduro. That's what happened with all these other countries that people keep saying keep getting overthrown by these elites. So with that, I do believe that people are going to go beyond revolting, because revolting is what we did in like the French Revolution, and then you were overthrown literally right after the end of revolution. So we're going beyond revolutions, y'all. We're not just going to go get mad and then let somebody else take over again. I believe that we're going to start getting decentralized, but it requires us, each of us, to be sovereign, to be making our own discernment, our own decisions for what is best for us and our communities. And once those hyper focused, hyper communized, or realized communities come together and band together, this whole federal government will end, because the federal government is really putting a lot of power on people where there's no power at the bottom. It's when we have power back at the bottom with the people that we actually have real leadership in the world. And so I do think this power shift is going from this pyramid scheme of the elite on top and everybody at the bottom to flip upside down, which is also the V for the women, is the top is going to rule. And so that's the everyday person. So, that's why right now, you know, do your inner work, do your shadow work, do your individual sovereignty work. Because right now, the more you are sovereign of who you are, the more you realize what medicine you should be using based on who you are constitutionally, the more you make decision from that place of spiritual power, the more our world shifts.
Which is Neptune in Aries.
Exactly. With Saturn coming in and say, hey, hey, write down what you want. Don't say you're going to change
Is the
everything.
responsibility that you're talking about.
Exactly. So with great powers, right? Neptune comes great responsibility. Saturn comes behind, right? So that's why I do believe Saturn was not accidentally put next to Neptune, but Saturn was put right next to Neptune to make sure that as we're dissolving the old structures, we're building a new structure based on our individual needs. And that's why I think our individual needs will supersedes AI. And when that happens, the AI conversation will naturally fall away. The problem is we're not busy enough looking at ourselves and each other, that we're now looking at AI to solve our problems. I do think we can solve our problem if we're willing to look at ourselves, our own shadow work, do our own work, so that we're not just projecting bullshit on each other and then repeating old shit. Okay? Let's drop the old shit. CERN is now done. We're no longer being forced to follow the matrix. So I would say, for sacred medicine right now,
Turn on again.
huh?
This is just like a maintenance shutdown.
Yes.
They're
It's
switching it back on, aren't they? I thought
no,
it's just the maintenance shutdown.
no. I don't believe it's ever gonna go back on. I do believe they're saying they're gonna turn back on because they have to show face. I don't. I think the galactic force shut it down because it's restricting humans from living in full free will
You're saying you're connecting CERN to the 10th gate in Iran.
to one of the gates.
Now that
Yes,
CERN is shut down, now we can effectively liberate the 10th gate in Iran.
correct.
I don't
Yes.
know, bro. It's going down there like a fat kid on a seesaw for sure.
But that's why we didn't fully blow up Iran until CERN shut down, and now we're going to end Iran, right? So I do think timing has been going on. We're waiting for certain things to happen.
I don't know, bro. Astrology shows Iran becoming very powerful. Now, what that means, I don't know. If that means the current government or if it means the people take over, I'm not sure.
So
But the astrology is showing Iran as strong, whatever
yeah,
that means.
because I do think that people. So do you know who the people of Iran are? Who they are originally? We renamed them. That's why we forgot them. They're the Persians.
Persians.
Yeah,
Yeah, bro,
Constantinople.
I've Persian friends.
Yeah, so they're Persian. So Iran is not a real state. Iran is a made-up state based on the elites. So we're gonna give back. Really, it started with Constantinople, right, or Turkey. But basically, the Persian Empire needs to come back, and it has to be ruled by their people. Once they can come back, they will end their religion, just like many of our cultures will end religion and will come back into a spiritual path, not a religious path. The problem is religion is like CERN. It's keeping us
Yeah,
from
but I don't
accessing.
see that happening this life. Do you? Maybe that's what happens in 2046. Maybe
No,
that's the awakening for the collective. I don't know.
no,
I would have thought that that would take a few lifetimes, to be fair.
no. That's gonna go down real fast. Seriously, once you start,
I mean, the point is, Brew, the reason why I say that is because something drastic would have to happen. For remember, religion still it rules out of fear and all of that, and you can say what you want, but it still governs a lot of people's relationships with God, right?
yeah,
So to rip it away, um, it's too destabilizing for the collective. Uh, do
it's
you know what
all
I'm saying? Like the relationship itself is then has got a high risk of completely disintegrating Neptune. So and dissolving. So it's and then you risk insanity because then it's a complete disconnection from source.
not
So
necessarily, not necessarily. This is again, this is why the veil is coming apart, so that we get people to finally start reconnecting back to their intuition, and that will naturally guide them back to source while everything's falling apart. And that's why healers like us are being asked now to step up and to reflect back.
yeah, but we're needed for another 200 years. That's what I'm saying.
I understand, but religion is not going to last 200 years. I will bet all my marbles that religion does not last 200 years. Religion is already at the tipping point.
No, because I think religion has to go for people to come to us really to begin with.
I, I,
So
I,
you're
ju-
right there.
I just think once we talk ET, we'll be willing to look at all of
I mean,
our
not
religious
necessarily, but
textbook and read them as if they were contact scenarios, not a separate God that rules them. I really do believe we're going to look at these books and say, oh, look, humans make contact with an ET. Hence these gods. Hence what they taught us. And that's going to change the way we portray our own sovereignty, because all these religious people were basically just ETs with knowledge that was able to restrict us. And so when that happened, that's when more people are starting to like wake up and have the confidence to trust their own intuitive connection to God, right? And I think
I'm
that
talking about something like this. Like, let's just picture the scenario here briefly, okay? That in terms of the physical world and communicating with us in the physical world, that we find out all of us that can talk to source, because there's more and more people, you know, the spiritual awakenings, they're all talking to source, have realized that in actual fact, this whole time they were in fact not talking to source. They were telepathically communicating with, say, the Pleiadians, right? The seed, they were a seed of the Pleiad. I'm just using this as an example. I'm not saying this is the case. They were seeded by the Pleiadians, and the Pleiadians are helping on this ascension journey. And so all the communication you've had up until now has been with the Pleiadian, which is coming through as an alien, so to speak, in disclosure, right? Whether it's interdimensional, whether it's physical, I don't know. But it's coming through as an alien. So what happens to all the conversations that you had with God? Do you know what I'm saying? That's a lot to just wipe out in a second. And it's like pervasive in your life. So that can be quite shattering, and I would say very damaging. Now you're talking, that would be trauma like on the level of Atlantis, but rather than a physical thing on the outside, that's like a flood on the inside, bro. Neptune in Aries.
Not necessarily. I mean,
inside.
You're kind of now saying the remembering of our past is more traumatic than the forgetting of our past.
No.
Because what you're saying is in our awakening, we're remembering who we are and our relationship to God. Whether we're talking to Pleiadians or not. But when we do that.
No, well, I'm talking about in a hypothetical moment, because you're talking about like, we're talking about disconnection from God, right?
Yeah.
And
but more people are disconnected from God today. And that's what
if you come in and everybody, and this includes then you and me, just by the way, we find out, oh, it's not God that we've been talking to all this time. It's this Pleiadian called Billy Bob or whatever.
Right.
Do you know?
But
that would be very significant for the human psyche.
Well, what I'm trying to tell you is, yes, it is that way, but it's deeper than that. So, okay, I don't want to get too much into the hierarchy or the multi-dimensional abilities of our soul. However, yes, when I first started my journey, I believe I was talking to ETs, and I believe I was talking to spirit guides, those who were my ancestors who passed. And then at one point, they told me, hey, Charlie, we're actually a version of you. If you are divine, you are source. But if you are the image of source yourself, Charlie Trin, then all your guides are also a version of you, the soul Charlie, but not called Charlie. Right? So my Pleiadian version is me in the future.
Yeah.
But in that context, through the quantum entanglement,
that's happening. But I'm talking about the physical experience, because if you tell somebody, that's what I'm saying. If you tell somebody that they're communicating with the Pleiadians,
but I believe the physical manifestation is easier to come to terms with than the non-physical manifestation. The problem is we think the people who are talking to aliens today are the crazy ones. And it doesn't matter what we say. So when we are thinking, oh my God, we're like freaking out because we've been talking to an ET in our head, I think that's going to come with the depth that we're also divine in that connection. And so I think it's not going to come flooding in one piece at a time where you're like, oh, suddenly I'm talking to ETs. Am I talking to the devil? Am I talking to God? It's the same thing. But that's going to all come flooding in until you recognize it's the same thing, right? But I do think in the beginning, like, yeah, I thought I was talking to my ancestors. And then someone told me, your ancestor is you.
But that's what I'm saying. It takes time to process. And I'm saying that is going to be a significant thing for the human psyche to process.
But
I don't see it happening in just one lifetime.
But what I'm saying is, yes, and you have a point, but you also forget that the everything as humans that we believe in physics doesn't apply to spiritual technology. Period. So
For sure,
no.
for
So with
sure.
that said,
But the human psyche still has its
I
limitations.
understand. So
You
with that
can't
said,
bypass
but
that
listen, with
because
that
you do
said,
risk psychosis.
there's
This
something
is
called
reality.
the 100th monkey experiment. When 10% of a race has enough information, 90% of their race gets a download, and now they treat it as if it's their own information without having
Yes,
to
yes,
do
no,
the
I know about
work.
that. Yeah.
With that said, when everybody wakes up, no one's gonna go, oh, that's weird that it's a version of me in a Palladian that is not God. Because in that moment that all of it floods back in, we'll know that every version of us is a fractal of God already. And so we won't be that's weird that my Palladian version of me was talking to me all this time and I wasn't talking to God. I believe that all that will come flooding in because the knowledge of consciousness would just fill the rest of the void, where up until CERN and all these systems are keeping us from accessing these divine wisdom, we have to do a lot of kundalini work to access that info. When everything clicks and all the systems have been keeping it from accessing, so suddenly the Wi-Fi channel starts going online and now everybody has internet everywhere they go, then you'll notice that like no one's going, oh, that was weird, that was a different version of me. I do believe the knowledge will all come flooding in. We may not know how to express it, but we'll know intuitively that it is us and also an aspect of God, right? But today we struggle because we have the disconnection of the different aspects of ourselves and God, and so we're more in pain today than we are when we find our connection back to the quantum tunnel of source, right? So that's what I'm saying is no, I think things are gonna be much better, but I think 2046 is gonna be something we can't perceive because um, even up to 2036, we still think that our whole reality will change, and we don't even know what that looks like. So at 2046, I can barely imagine that we'll already be hanging out with ETs. If anything, it could be like the first time
We've
ETs.
just got to get through 2030 anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. By 2030, I really do believe most of Revelation will have been put out there, and we will have. I do believe there's like literally 100% worth of info we have to download still as a culture for our truth, and we're only like at 5%. But as we get higher to the numbers, they're dropping more chunks at a time because as we evolve and evolve, we're able to handle more information. So I do think right now it's hard. The first year one of
Same as in
Revelation.
Gemini, a sudden change in the amount of information that you can download.
Exactly. So I do think this
Neptune and
year
Aries.
is going to feel the most drastic for people to get it. Because everybody up until last year we're still saying, "Oh, that's not real. That's AI." Eventually, we'll be like, "Fuck, I think that's real," and I do believe dragons
Yeah.
are real. It's no longer AI, even if it is AI. Dragons are real. There's real evidence of dragon, and now we live among dragons, and that will be, I don't know, year two, year three. But I do think year one is um, at least the planet. So election fraud, revelation. That's beginning of revelation. We're gonna find out all of our politicians, all liars and cheaters and terrorists. We're gonna find out most of our government are lies. So those things will have to happen first before we start realizing religion is a lie. But with that said, by the time we hit religion is a lie and these people are lying to us, I do believe the connection to God will be already turned on, and people aren't going to go through the whole dark night of the soul that we went through. Some of us went through some really fucked up dark night of the soul, and then we woke back up, and then we live our life inspiring others to wake up. So I do believe that those who have done the work, we're probably going to have the most energy to hold on to people transitioning, right? I think a lot of people are going to transition during this time to kind of like realize, like, okay, if this is a lie, what does that lie inform, right? And through that, people are going to go through those changes, but I think they're going to go faster because people like us are already talking about this. If people like us weren't around, then people will have a much harder way to reconnect logic in lives. So now I think we're going to represent those milestones for people who are going to look for us to say, Charlie, I don't know what's right and wrong anymore because of all these lies. And then we're going to be the one talking through them to help them, guide them back to that intuitive spot they're missing.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
well
I'm
said.
excited. Here we go. I'm
We
doing
could
a
actually carry on talking about this for hours, but I think we need to get into a quick sacred medicine.
yes. It's getting to sacred medicine, y'all.
I don't actually have a sacred medicine. I didn't prepare specific sacred medicine this week, but the reason why I brought it up is because with Uranus in Gemini, I see people are having some breathing difficulties. There is some stuff, happening between the lungs and the heart. Even though we're clearing root and sacral chakras, it's not linear. You're busy with heart chakra for sure. It's one of the main stars of the show. So Uranus in Gemini is definitely, being Gemini being an air sign, is definitely makes me think of breath. Okay, and Uranus being that electrical energy, and as I said earlier on, pointing to the brain, is really pointing for me to the nervous system. And so with Uranus in Gemini, I feel like breath work is going to help stabilize and calm the nervous system, because there's no doubt that Uranus in Gemini is doing some damage to the nervous system. There is zero doubt. So breath work is pretty critical, I would say, for the next 5 to 7 years. And Charlie and I are going to be talking about microcosmic orbit until you are sick of hearing about it, because that is exactly what is needed right now. The microcosmic orbit is the breath of life, and it's really, I would say, a life changer in energies like we're in now. So I just wanted to, not really sacred medicine, it is sacred medicine, but just wanted to mention that again due to its criticalness. It's a pinnacle point, y'all. It's a pinnacle point that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say my sacred medicine is meditate correctly. What I mean by that is stop with the modern interpretation of meditation. I think they're all false. The reason none of you guys are meditating because you guys aren't doing it correctly because not being taught correctly. It's much simpler than that. The goal of being empty-minded is a level 10 output of meditation. Most of us are working at level 1 through 5, okay? And level 1 through 5 requires you to do one specific thing that none of you guys are doing. You have to process the information by catching it, looking at it, ask yourself, why am I always angry when I see ABC? And when you look at it, it'll open up and you'll notice there's like a story with it. Sometimes it's connected to when I was a kid, I did this. And because I did that, I see ABC every time. It's when you start doing that, you start to find these little patterns of when you were a kid, you did this. Or when someone did that, you did this. And that created the situation that keeps attracting these thoughts to your head. And once you start to do that, you'll noticing, oh, a pattern came in. I'm angry because, oh, I've done this before. I keep getting mad at this. Charlie, are you learning that you're getting mad at this for the 150,000th time? Eventually, you'll be like, okay, this is too much. I need to stop doing that. And eventually, you will adjust your habit because that thought will be processed finally, and you'll realize what makes that thought happen. And then you'll do that. You'll actually stop doing that habit, and you'll notice that thought won't come back. You do that 2-3 times a day after a year of processing those thoughts, you'll notice no more thoughts are coming in. The reason no thoughts are coming in is because you stop them at their trigger point. Okay? The trigger point meaning when you get mad, when you get happy, when you get sad, when you get upset, when you get any emotional trigger, something in you is making you pay attention to that moment. That moment could be because something happened to you when you're younger, making you trigger. Now it makes you avoid these people. And you look at that trigger and you start to realize it's because when I was a kid I did this, and you break it apart. Every time that trigger comes in, you'll start to see it and go, oh, I don't get triggered by these people anymore. It's kind of how racism happens, okay? One person in one culture did something bad to you. So what do? Every time you see that type of people, they trigger in your code, and now you have this energy, and you're like, every time I see a purple woman, I get triggered, right? So it comes into your field, and now every time you have these purple women filters. So every time you deal with this purple women filter, and you don't deal with, so now purple women don't trigger you, when you're sitting meditation, you won't see those purple triggers. So eventually, when you have no more triggers in your field, are you actually doing meditation level
You
100?
basically got to do shadow work, and shadow work is actually going to help your meditation
Correct.
practice.
So shadow work is looking at the thoughts that are causing the shadow, the negative thoughts. And when you do shadow work, you realize that what's causing the shadow is something of an event. And that event is the light that's causing the shadow, that's causing you to be scared of your shadows. So it's when you really deal with shadow work, you're dealing with your thoughts. When you go into meditation, you'll notice no thoughts come in because your filter is so much stronger now that anything that will trigger you before will come into your field and jump out because you're not magnetizing it to your space anymore. So when you do meditation correctly, you have now created barriers around your field because you process the thoughts that got through your field. Okay? So meditation in level 1 through 5 is going to feel really messy, like your room can't get clean. But after level 6, when you've actually been doing this for almost like a couple months now, you'll notice no dirty thoughts coming to your field. And that's when you know meditation have really kicked in. Because now meditation is the filter of thoughts. And once you know how to filter thoughts so that they're not coming in to distract your attention and your intention, you'll notice that like nothing fucks with your energy. And that's when you know you have true inner peace. So now what I'm going to say is the sacred medicine is meditate, process your thoughts, process your thoughts, process your thoughts. And in doing that, you'll start to
Classic
get.
Uranus in Gemini.
Yes,
Classic
exactly.
Uranus in process your thoughts. Yeah.
Exactly. Because Uranus, all this air element is throwing new thoughts at you. So you have to process them so that you can start to eventually have a filter so you don't automatically have to process everything that comes through your field. Okay? So that's kind of the power of meditation. That's going to get through a lot of this mental chatter of the air element that we're running into at this moment. So I hope you guys really practice that meditation, do your breath work as Lilith suggested, and we'll find you activated, conscious, and ready to live your life.
Same place, same time,
See,
next
bet
time.
channel.
We won't be in the same time, space time. We'll be in a
Yeah,
different space time.
we'll be different space time. So thank you
Yeah.
all for watching another episode of Lunacy and Logic. Until next time.
Namaste.
Bye.